Hello, my Rangers, and I want to do something different for today. Yeah, I know. You're probably going to be seeing this video and going, what is Commando up to? What on earth are you doing? Well, I would like to introduce you to a project I've been working on in the background, kind of on and off for the last couple months, probably since the beginning of the year. But let's get the full context of what you're looking at. This is a TTRPG I am making, a tabletop role-playing game. What sort of role-playing game, you might ask? Well, it's not your standard D&D clone with a twist. This alone should tell you that one right off the bat, and the years alone you can see. And names, you might be already reading it. I don't know if you can zoom in far enough to read, but I know you're going to. So, what is this game? This is my game, Bullets, Magic, and Steel, a World War I tabletop RPG set in an alternate universe from our own that had a similar Great War, but not quite the same. Now you might be asking yourself two things. Either A, Commando, why are you making this? Isn't there a better way to play World War I in a tabletop RPG? And the other half of you might be like, dude, what are you smoking? Where can I find some? Or maybe not one of those two. I forgot actually what I wanted to say, but I have to come up with something off the top of my head. I get it. The story goes, me and a bunch of buddies were kind of playing around with some systems one day, and I was like, you know what? I want to DM for the first time. I want to DM my first game, but I don't want to play a game like D&D. I don't want to do your guys' games. I want to do my game. So I made a very, very shoddy, very basic World War I system. In fact, if you want to know what it looked like, ignore all of this. We're going to come back to it in a moment. Let's just go to the old player forums. Yeah, we're going to go to you. This is what the old recruitment files used to look like. Yeah, you might be seeing something. This is pretty bare bones. Now, granted, it was just a bunch of us friends. It wasn't nothing to, be concerned about. But, still, it got me thinking. I eventually tried to go to another server with it. And a buddy of mine was like, you know what? You have something here that could really turn out good. Why don't you just make a whole new game? So I've been working on it. In fact, we go back to core booklet. There used to be 7 files here. You might be wondering what happened to the other 3. They're all in here now. This used to be just the DM booklet with a weapons file and a magic file. Yes, there's magic in this world. I will explain in a moment. But eventually, recently, I put them all together, and I'm slowly going through it. This is not a complete game yet. Don't think this is me trying to, oh, get me money or whatever, because this game's almost done, and I just need it for this. No, this game's nowhere near done. I'm not even into alpha testing. That's how early test build this might as well be. But anyway, let's kind of go off what happened. So, where does this take place? Well, this is World War I. Duh. That's the whole point of it. But how is it different? The first off is well, all this happens in 1915. The Americans are forced into the war after the German Empire U-boats sink one of their warships off the coast of Carolina, drawing them into the war on the side of the Freedom Holder Alliance. You'll see them in a moment. The shogunate, yes, the Japanese are not actually in a republic or democracy, whatever it was. It's the samurai are still around. They won. They're in Manchuria now, again, for the Sino-Japanese War, aka the Russian versus Japanese War that happened, I think, before World War I. So the war is now happening again with the Koreans in the middle there. The Imjin Empires, the Koreans. They're having a 3-way war on the Asian front. Turkish Emirate, yes, the Ottomans are no longer a thing. It's a Turkish Emirate. Launches its final jihad against the Crusader states of Acre and Jerusalem. Yes, the Crusaders have survived. So has the Papal States. And the Papal States are like, hey, Brits, go to Gallipoli. Yeah, we already know how that's probably going to go, but you never know. First, tanks roll off the assembly line, and the Germans are like, you know what? We're going to throw some mechs out at you. fudge you. So, unable to sustain enough going around Africa and through Egypt, British Empire launches 2 attacks against the Spanish Empire at the usual suspects of Gibraltar and whatnot. And they also attacked the Zulu Empire, which has survived. The year is 1916. The war has been going on for 2 years, and all nations in the war are fighting a brutal conflict. It's all held in the balance, and any side is able to fight, with any side able to fight and find decisive victory in the war. So, I would also like to mention any pictures you see are just placeholder. As I said, this is still pretty much an early build of this. So, this is a historical map of everything, including some of the more known regions like Ukraine and whatnot. But because if you don't know, Poland was mainly split up between Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia. Even though it says it's by itself, it's not. Allied powers, neutral powers, and neutral. So, we're going to go down and start off. I'm just going to go off, see if this is an interesting. This is basically what it is. If you find this interesting, let me know. I'm not looking for support. It's so early. I'm not looking for people to help test the game yet. I still have to get with some buddies and make sure everything is good. But we're going to go through it, slowly but surely. So first off, the Steel Alliance, which is made up between the Germans and the Austrian-Hungarians. The Eagle countries, we can even call them, because of the fact that both of them used an eagle in their banners previously. German Empire existed before Napoleon as the Prussian Empire, but after the succession of the late Otto Bismarck, the German people made up an empire that could rival many of the nations around them. And I'll start talking a little bit more, but basically the Germans are here, and so is the Austrian-Hungarians under a Steel Alliance. Pretty typical, guys. I'm sorry. It's not going to be all the same as ours, but I did want to see a majority of similarities between the two. Otherwise, it really wouldn't be a 1-to-1 World War I, maybe. Maybe I need to ditch this, but anywho. Continuing on, we have the Freedom Holders, which is the British Empire and all of its colonies, the French, and the Americans. The Russians are not part of the Entente in this world. It's the Americans who kind of stepped up. So our boys kind of went in a little bit earlier than everyone expected. But speaking of them, we have the Russian Empire, who is kind of, still around. We have the Tokugawa Shogunate, as mentioned before. The Japanese are here. I would like to mention that if you know who does the art for this, I understand these are all placeholder. So don't be like, hey, is that exactly what they look like? Or are you trying to rip them off? I mean, no, these are just basically how I would want them to look like. But obviously, if I was to get an actual professional painter, they would look a little bit better. We have the Russians, the Tokugawa Shogunate. We have the Emirate, the Turkish Emirate. The Spanish Kingdom. Yes, Spain is a kingdom you can play and fight for or against in this game. The Italian states, which is kind of where the Papal State comes in. Papal State is historically, they kind of it doesn't exist as long as there's a unified Italy. And this one, a lot of families, a lot of powerful people control various houses and noble lineages, hold states in Italy with, as I describe it, a mixed bag of allegiances, meaning you could either be fighting them or helping them, depending on if you're with the Steel Alliance or the Freedom Holders. And because of that, the Papal State is able to exist. The Arctic Alliance is an alliance amongst Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. Yeah. Oh, and they're known, even though they're called the White Army, meaning the color white, as I mentioned, they're also the White Army because they feel the most undead of any nation. You'll see here in a moment. The Zulus are here, so if you want to play Shaka Zulu, go ahead. And the Koreans are also here because I thought, might as well throw them in. And the Holy Orders of the Papal State with its Swiss Guard, and the Crusader states that have survived this far because of one reason. Defense instead of attack, and a lot of luck. Technology, same as kind of like our own, but with some new things, mechs and a few other things. But there's also now magic. Obviously, this is fantasy. I didn't want to just give you a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but no, nothing significant. There's still magic, and it is quite powerful. Or at least I've tried to make it powerful. Types of magic. This is basic, I know, but this is all I've come up with so far. We have elemental for the elements. We have holy magic, resurrection magic. We have demonic magic, because it's the opposite of holy. Necromancy, and the arcane, which is basically everything else that you can think of. And finally, the cool part of where the fantasy starts kicking in. We have for the races, and there's a lot. There is a lot, if you can't tell. So we have humans, you have your elves, we have ogres, orcs, dwarves, goblins, the undead. Doesn't matter what type of undead. If you just say, hey, I'm a vampire, while I may personally consider you a monster, you could also be considered just undead, depending on what type of vampire. I'm not going to get specific on what type of thing. Angels, and obviously monsters is kind of an umbrella term for everything from, vampires actually is under monsters. We have Selkie, phoenixes, thunderhawks, any type of monster, dragons, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, you're a monster. But bonuses, 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 bonuses. Duh, because otherwise it would be boring. Demi-humans, kind of a new thing where people are half human, half whatever. Monsters, angels, undead, goblins, dwarves, they can all look like themselves, with monsters being either straight up just the monster, but, you know, some appear demi-human, while others do not. Demi-human is another way of saying you look like an anime cat girl, if you are part of the cat folk. You also have the rat folk. Yeah. They're also the most absolutely hated race on the earth because rat folk. You have the dog folk. Horse folk, or hence centaurs. Yeah, they're going to be interesting. We have the bird folk, lizard folk, stag folk, merfolk, or mermaids if you want to be that way. In fact, I'll just... Yes, you're watching me edit this live. Then we have the bear folk. Because, you know, gotta round it out somewhere. Give the Russians something. Weapons you will be seeing. These are all currently already been given stats and everything. We have pistols, carbines, rifles, light machine guns, anti-tank rifles, shotguns, because I know what you guys are going to do, Americans. You know exactly what you're going to do. Grenades as well. There's a few other weapons not mentioned here, but yeah. We have emplacements to let you know what you're going to also be using on the front lines. Vehicles. We have tanks, because the Brits made them. And they're kind of the main producers of them. Some people have them as well, but mainly the Brits. The mechs. The Germans have them because I got to give them something to outpower the tanks of the Brits, but not be, you know, broken. Planes. Us Americans love our planes. Air superiority. And armor. Like historically, armor does come back from the medieval ages and returns in the Great War. Some of it is more or less padding, some of it's steel plates. Yeah. Much like World War I. The whole concept of what you're seeing here is me saying, I'm going to make it a fantasy, high fantasy, maybe even we can call this, a fantasy World War I game. I can't make it historically accurate because of fantasy. So rather than that, I decided to go with historically authentic. And that is I hope I've done that. So, war fronts. We have Western Europe, Eastern Europe, which is Russia and all them, as well as the Arctic Alliance trying to break the Russian Empire. Haha, the Winter War is boogalooed several years before it actually happens. We have Africa and the Middle East and Siberia and Korea. I said Imjin, but I'm going to change it to Korea and Siberia. Makes more sense. Recruitment file, which is what we saw previously. The new recruitment file, if you want to know what that looks like, looks a little more lackluster, but then again, when does a military recruiting file ever look good? But anyway, this is just kind of a basic thing. You know, this will obviously change. In fact, could do that. Yeah, I didn't like how that was doing. But yeah, Got all the stats. Obviously, I'm going to just start repeating it. You know this. It's a work in progress, especially in the magic part. All sorts of stuff already set up based upon something my other friend does, but at the same time, just trying to make it look decent. Anyway, we have duties, so you can be all sorts of jobs here, which is another way. Mages, the people who use magic, I have set a interesting thing. A lot of times you can just use magic, and you can run with a whole mage squad if you want to. Not recommended, but you can do that in other games. In this one, well, guess what? You have to roll a 7 on a 1d10. So this now, if this becomes a game, a DM can decide to ignore this. But I only put it in because I want magic to be rare. This world is no longer like fantasy world anymore. The world has changed. Warfare has changed. There's no longer a huge there's not really as many people who can use magic anymore, as people are forced to use normal weapons. The people who can use it, however, are pressed into service. But they are rare, and guess what? Because they're rare, they are sought after greatly on all sides. I wanted to kind of do that. I don't want you to just have magic innately. Only so many people can use it. And some of the people who should be able to use it, like the elves, not all of them can use it anymore because times have changed. Not everyone practices the old ways. Got ranks. Just your way of leveling up. All the way to major. This may change. I may put this to lieutenant colonel, but I got it to major so far. Stats. We have, as you saw, but we have initiative, dodge ability. You can't really dodge a bullet, but I gave you one anyway. Just on the off chance you see the shot coming, or to quote unquote, just be plain lucky. You got a hit points, mana pool. If you're not using mana, just ignore this really. But on the off chance you want to use it, you need to use it. Yeah, mages, this is going to be your big friend. And we have stamina for using stuff, climbing walls and sort of stuff. Core stats, something a little similar to what you may have seen at skill stats, though, is a little bit different. Everything based upon the core stat here. And so I decided, before they got just called handguns, but now I've decided to make short weapons because it includes pistols and SMGs. Yes. And long weapons being the catch-all term for from carbines to shotguns and whatnot. Got Overwatch, which is a new mechanic where you're going to be able to go, hey, DM, I want to Overwatch somewhere. Alright, you're Overwatching an area. If you have, and if anything comes by that's the enemy, you have a chance to shoot it and engage them before they actually get to their place. Really helpful for, being like, hey, I don't want this guy doing this one thing. I know he's going to try to do it, so I'm going to Overwatch instead of shoot and just wait for him to try it and catch him off guard. He might not do it seeing you do that, but whatever. Got hand-to-hand and melee combat, with the difference between the two is hand-to-hand is if you just want to beat a motherfudger, like a World War I raid-in. Or if you're melee combat, you want to use more than one brain cell within arm's reach of an orc, and just smack a motherfudger with a bayonet. Got heavy weapons encumbrance. Okay, let's be honest. I didn't like the D&D system. Encumbrance, some games do well, some games don't. But this is simply a way to make sure that you're not running around with an army's worth of crap on your back and just, running off. Slight realism here. It also gets affected, too, if you're carrying your buddy on your back. Yeah, that also does it, too. Athletics. Command. You can now command enemies. I'll explain why there's a command feature in here, but yes. Not enemies as well, friendlies. You can command people as well. If you see some NPCs you want to do something, look at them and go, hey, DM, I'm gonna command these guys to do something. Go ahead. Observation. This may kind of be used for other things as well, like perception, but it's used also to direct artillery fire and air attacks from a distance. Oh yes, you can drop RD on your enemies and watch them burn. Magic, not really so much. Technology, fortify and construction are going to be used a lot for building things. Or in this case, construction is an engineer's best friend. Fortify is the infantryman's, because that's the only thing he needs to dig foxholes, trenches, and everything else. And we got a few more skills, including leadership, which allows you to try and rally a bunch of friendlies who may not be doing so hot in resolve, which, by the way, is your morale. Resist for mental stuff, and overcome is, I don't remember, but you can roll like an overcome to overcome like a resolve test potentially. And inventory encumbrance. Reality and this is simply just, me just basically saying I didn't like the way 5e and how D&D usually does things with the encumbrance. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't make much sense, and I'm just kind of like, eh. Basically, it's just like, you're going to need to be smart with how you pack. And you do get penalties for over encumbrance, but you probably all look at me, it's like, yeah, that's not really like too much D&D for different. D&D may even do better. We'll see. We have special moves, skill checks, combat. So I decided to also do something a little different. All my turns last 10 seconds, which means within 6 turns you've already fought for a whole minute. You get a major action, a minor action, and a movement, as well as a free reaction for other things. Got range combat, weapon, misfires and jams, melee combat, because it still existed there. Maybe not as useful, but still existed. Magic is a bit different because, unlike other times where you just have spell slots, you actually have to roll for magic. So once you've expended a mana, you can roll a 1d10 plus the magic stat in the core, and you can see if you get it back. And you need that number, and I believe below, to get that back. And you can only get max of 9, but instead of, if you spend like 10 mana, which is the most you're ever going to hopefully see, hopefully, if I've done my math correctly, 9 is going to be able to get you through an entire fight. You won't be able to sling spells all too much. It may be considered a major action, but you're going to be slinging spells out left, right, and center, and only really need to keep an eye on your mana. Got grenades, covering experiment, line of sight, infantry armor is different. I took the idea from Cyberpunk actually for the armor degradation and whatnot, and made it very similar. But there's a lot of weapons that have a high rate of fire that could just shred armor because it degrades for each hit. So yeah, fun times. And armor can be repaired either on the battlefield with other armor or at engineer's repair shop, where they have an armory. Give one orders, overwatching, critical assistant failures, weather, and night fighting. Yeah, you want to trench raid someone? You can do it. You want to fight in heavy rain like it's Passchendaele? Have fun. It's going to be so much fun. The only one I'm going to kind of be like iffy on is typhoons. I may switch this out with another one. But yeah, in theory, if this sticks around, you can fight in a typhoon for whatever reason. Or monsoon or hurricane, however you want to put it. Night fighting, fun times. All weapons have an effective range and a max range. Well, at least all the ranged ones. Effective ranges being how, low difficulty. Max range being you're trying to snipe someone with a weapon that might not be built for it. Have fun. Special rules. Vehicles have crew needs. Now, if you're doing, as I mentioned, if you are doing a strictly vehicle game, no one's infantry, everyone's in vehicles, give everyone a vehicle. Do it. I don't care. I actually want that to happen. But if you're playing just a normal bunch of grunts, and you come across a vehicle and you want to pilot it, everyone's got a crew need. Specifically, like the AV7 with 14 different crew needing to operate it. Oh yes. They're all there. We got flying for demi-humans and just normal plane combat. There's even an elevation system. Yeah, we get fancy up in here with maneuvers, dodging. Alright, we got all sorts of campaign stuff. Some of this may change, like the supply stuff here. This is for those. Filling out paperwork. If you really want to make your buddies hate you as a DM, or as a DM you're just ticked off at your players for getting a bunch of good stuff, start making them fill out paperwork for everything. Oh, it'll be so much fun. and potentially adding a mesh part for getting sick. Ignore all this about this because this is all just kind of there. The weapon list is kind of not based off of Battlefield 4, or Battlefield 1, I should say, but you can kind of tell what it is, with melee being able to ignore all armor, because otherwise melee would be useless. Legitimately, they just don't have the damage. Even with rate of fire, that's 2d6 at most. And at 12, something's going to ignore it with armor, but, you know, it auto-ignores armor with all of it. All sorts of weapons. Got the pistols. Everyone has at least 1 or 2 weapons in each thing. Americans, you got your 1911s, your freebombs. Get out of here. You could stop doing things. As well as a few weapons I added recently that are part of specific nations to use as just a... I wanted to add more to them rather than just say that they used everyone else's. Even though certain nations like the Turks used Russian equipment to fight. Carbines. You can fire them from horseback, one-handed, less heavy, but shorter range. So their max distance is going to be less than that of the rifles. All sorts of rifles, by the way. Not a lot of weapons. I didn't want to, like, throw, like, a lot of weapons at you, but, you know, just throw enough for diversity's sake. And as it is, should everything go well, everyone starts mainly with rifles anyway. And 3d6 damage is some of the most damage you're going to see until in about 5 seconds here. Got the LMGs. Anti-tank weapons, which if you shoot it at a tank, it's doing 5. That's wrong. That's wrong. Okay, hold on. Rolls 2 additional 1d12 damage. Okay, better. Instead of doing 7d12, it's doing 5d12. That's what I wanted. But yeah, 5d12 damage to a tank or a mech, or just a vehicle. Have fun. Other than that, 3d12 damage to a single guy could probably drop him. Trench gun. Yep, there it is. There it is. Have fun. Got your SMGs, grenades, currently, and flamethrowers for those of you who want to commit war crimes before war crimes were a thing. Got the magic system. Nothing I should mention is you can actually upgrade some of the mana with additional mana to increase damage or modify it so it does damage against double damage against durability here. So we got the elemental stuff. Armor list. This is basically what you're going to be using a lot and seeing a lot of. If you want all the better armor, it's going to probably cost you, or it's going to take you to find them. Light armor being kind of the padded stuff. Mage armor, bonuses to the mage. So mages, use this. Use this. Use all of this. And it's only allowed for them anyway. So medium armor, padding, and some actual armor. And then Stormtrooper armor for those of you who just want to walk around like a partial tank. Got some shields, including the Canadian shovel shield, even though it wasn't effective in World War I. Real life will make it effective. A basic list system. This is still getting modified, still getting fleshed out. All this ammo, yes, you're going to have to get used to using your to keeping an eye on it. And everyone has different ammo. It's not just rifle, or LMG, or pistol, because not everyone uses the same cartridges. So, if you pick up a Japanese rifle and try to load your ammo into it, you better hope it doesn't blow up or doesn't jam. Vehicles, we got cavalry, because they're still a thing. Got the tanks, everything from the Whippet, and the males to the females, Renaults, and the German AV7. Yeah. Actually, he's got a crew of 7, not 14. My bad. My bad. And we got the mechs. And then we got the planes and the placement list. Showing all sorts of weapons, you know, from machine guns to mortars to artillery guns and anti-aircraft. And then all the cover you can build, and that is about it. So, I know you probably got bored about halfway through this. I apologize. But anyway, this is something I've been working on. I hope it does well. The worst case scenario is this is a free thing you guys can play at some point. I would be okay with that, though. I would rather have something you all would be willing to play and make something that people are willing to play than not. I think a World War I tabletop RPG like this, whether it's fantasy or not, is kind of needed at this point. Maybe not needed, but I would like to see more stuff. Because not many people dip their fingers into like the gritty reality that is World War One. Hopefully, I'll be able to meet up with a buddy of mine soon, and be able to do a lot here, and get this relatively fine meshed until we can finally begin alpha testing with people and friends. But anyway, let me know what you think about this. I know it's a bit of a different video, but I just want to try this. I wanted to see what you guys thought. And please, share this. Share this with tabletop groups and whatnot. Be like, hey, this guy is doing something new. Or something interesting. What do you all think? I have to be up for constructive criticism, whether I want it to be or not. So anyway, let me know what you think. And anyway, I will see you, my Rangers, on the warfield. Bye-bye.